All right, we're in section 2.2 where we're going to add real numbers. Um, Adding real numbers is a pretty basic operation. So there are some rules that you have to kind of go by. Um, First rule is if you have two numbers that have the same sign, whether they're both positive or both negative, you get to add their absolute values. Then the sum is the same sign as the number you've added. So if they're both positive, that means the result will be positive. If they're both negative, then the result will be a negative. So if you look at these examples, you have 8 plus 3. Both of them are positive numbers. You're going to take the absolute value of them. So 8 plus 3 is 11. And since they're both positive, you leave it as 11. For negative 4 plus negative 13, you're going to go and add the absolute values of them together, and that gives you 17. But since they're both negative, you're going to attach that negative to it. Okay? Looking at the other rule for addition is if you're adding two numbers with different signs, which means one is positive and one is negative, you're going to subtract the lesser absolute value from the greater absolute value. Once you do that, the sum has the same sign as the number with the greater absolute value. So if you look at negative 2 plus 7, you're going to subtract those two, so that you're going to subtract the absolute value of them together. So 7 minus 2 happens to be 5, and then you're going to use the sign of the greater value and of the greater absolute value, which happens to be 7, and that happens to be the positive number. So that's where we leave it as a positive 5. Negative 15 plus 6, you subtract them, so that gives you 9. But negative 15 is the larger absolute value, so that's why we attach the negative to it. Okay? Looking here, these are properties of both of addition and subtraction, but when I was talking about this in class, we're just gonna pay attention to the addition. Today we'll get to multiplication a little bit later in this chapter. These are the different properties that allow you to do some different things, and it's okay because of these properties. So first property we're going to look at for addition is the commutative property. The general statement is if you have a value a plus b, it's the same thing as saying b plus a. So it's like, all right, say I had 4 plus 5. That's the same thing as writing 5 plus 4. Both of those results will be 9. So because of the commutative property, that's why that holds true. The next thing is the associative property. We got a plus b plus c equals a plus b plus c, but what they're doing on the left-hand side of the equal sign, they're adding a and b first, and on the right-hand side, they're adding b and c. Nothing wrong with that. That's okay. It's just what their choice was at that particular time, and you're still going to get the same result. So say I had 6 plus 7 plus 10 equals 6 plus 7 plus 10. But in this case, I decide to add the 6 and the 7 first. In this one, I decide to add the 7 and the 10 first. So if I add the 7 and the 10 first, I get 13 plus 10 equals 6 plus 17. But at the end of the day, they're both going to be 23. Okay? The identity property doesn't matter what a is as long as a is not 0. If you take a plus 0, it's going to equal a. So that's just the identity of it. So if you took like 5 and you added 0, that's going to be 5. And then the inverse, the last one, is if you took a value a and you added it to the opposite value of a, you're going to get 0. So just say a is 5 again. So if I took 5 and plussed it by negative 5, you in fact would get 0. Okay? Last thing we're going to do, we're going to take a look at some different rational numbers, and we're going to try to find the sums of these. We can use the same methods that we used in the first page, and then kind of piggyback off of that. Example A, they have different signs. One's negative, one's positive, so I'm going to subtract the difference of their absolute value. That gives me 8, and since the larger absolute value was the negative 11, it's going to be a negative 8. For B, it's a little bit different. So now we have fractions. What we're going to do is I want to make that into a mixed number. So the first one is 3 3/7, but the mixed number for this one's going to be 24 over 7 plus, and then 14 3/4 is going to be 59 fourths. So same thing, I just made into a mixed number. Now what we have to do is make this the denominators equal. So I need to find a common denominator. In this case, I believe that 28 is a common denominator for both of them. Now, since for this 7, to make it a 28, I had to multiply that bottom by 4. So that means I have to take 24 and multiply it by 4. So I get 96 on the top. And then this one here, I had to multiply 4 by 7. So that means I have to take 59 and multiply it by 7. And I get 413. And so now that I have a common denominator, I know that 28 is going to be on the bottom because that doesn't change when we're doing addition or subtraction. And so 96 plus 413 equals 509. And if I divided that by 28, that's 0. If I were to bring it back, it would give me 18, give me 28. So 28 times 18 gives me 405, so that means what? I put 5 on top. So it'd be 18 and 5/28. And I think that's in most terms, so I'll leave it like that. Okay? Looking at C, we've introduced some decimals in here. So we have to make sure that when we add them together, the 9.1 and the 2.5, the decimals match up. And you just add them accordingly. This would be 6. Drop down the decimal point, and you get 11.6. And then the last one, or D, I'm sorry, both of those are the same sign. They're both negative, so you know at the end of the day it's going to be a negative number. You add their absolute values, and you come up with negative 20. And E, this is an example of using the associative property, choosing to add one or more. Since I have two negative numbers, I'm going to choose to add those two negative numbers first. So I'm going to add these two negative numbers first. So negative 3.5 plus a negative 7.4. It's going to give me a negative 10.9. And then I just take that negative 10.9 and add it to 9.3. And since they're different signs, you subtract their absolute value. I know it's going to be negative because 10.96 is a larger number than 9.3 is an absolute value, so it's going to be negative 1.6. And that is being able to add real number values. Hope this helps. Until next time.